Hello and welcome to the Emerging Purpose Podcast. My name is Greg Donaldson and this is episode 7 with Ann Mathie. Now, Ann is a lovely person. We met probably about a month ago to speak, and she's so interesting in what she's been studying. I met her probably about 20 years ago, actually, but what we spoke about was her relationship to the transpersonal and understanding processes that arrive from transpersonal experiences and deep meditation practices. And we kind of got into a really deep, interesting conversation, which I hope you enjoy. So just before I tell you a little bit more about Ann, I just want to tell you a bit about what's been going on for me. So I haven't been putting out any podcasts for the last couple of months because I've been a bit busy doing a play, and you'll hear about a little bit about me talking about that towards the end of this podcast. Yeah, I've been deep in. I haven't been on stage or doing any acting for at least 8 or 9 years. I stepped away to train as a psychotherapist, and I realised kind of something was missing in my life. So I kind of joined the local theatre group and kind of got back into it, and ended up getting a lead role in a play called Pyrenees, which is just such a fascinating play. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the play, about the character, and this play will be going on. I'm doing a bit of shameless advertising here. It's opening on the 21st of April and runs till the 29th of April. In the theatre upstairs at the New Venture Theatre in Brighton. So if you're interested, please do book some tickets and come along. It's an amazing play by David Gregg, and it's directed by Sandy Armstrong. So let me tell you a little bit about it just before I introduce Ann. So it's a play called Pyrenees, and it's about a guy who wakes up in the Pyrenees, and he's been on a pilgrimage, and we don't know anything about him. But the play starts to explore, what makes identity, how do we know who we are, and it goes into these sort of very deep kind of identity questions. And I'm not going to say too much more about it, apart from it's been a really interesting process playing this character. And it's brought a lot of questions up in my from my own personal experience. So I'm going to leave it there, but I'll now introduce Ann. So Ann is, as I said just a minute ago, she's on a mission, and her mission is to understand psychological process that can arise from transpersonal experiences. So she did a master's in traditions of yoga and meditation at SOAS, and some of the topics that we covered in this conversation were spiritual emergency, Kuṇḍalinī experiences, wild energy and the expression of that, harnessing spiritual energy. We talked a little bit about Vipassana meditation and other meditation techniques. I suppose overall we were kind of like also just interested together about the psycho-spiritual approaches. And we kind of came to a place around, what's it all for? We talked about psychedelic integration, psychedelic experiences, and community. And I just really love this conversation with Ann, and I'm going to put lots of links in the show notes. So please enjoy this conversation with Ann Mathie. Are you reading anything at the moment that's kind of inspiring you, or watching anything?
Yeah, always. but specifically at the moment, I've just been kind of going over old papers that I've written and kind of re-editing them.
Oh, really?
So the thing that I've been trying to get into deeply is a text. It's an Indian text called the Samkhya Karika.
Ooh.
And I'm really into the mind, metaphysics, mind and matter. How do those two things interrelate? So this text is kind of like a really important... So, okay, I'm really interested in Indian philosophy of mind, the universe, manifestation of the universe, manifestation of mind.
Fascinating.
Metaphysics, all of that stuff. So I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This particular text is a really important text that describes how mind and matter interrelate, how they connect, their relationship between...
Mind and matter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well... consciousness,
okay.
Consciousness and materiality, and the relationship between these two things. So this is kind of, it's a really, it's quite a very deep exposition of the structures of our universe and our mind, which so much of Indian thought and philosophy is based upon this idea. So yeah, it's really geeky and fascinating.
Right. So this I can tell already. Like this is something that sort of fires you up.
Oh my God! Yes. Yeah. Totally.
So take us back a little bit. So you said some of your papers.
Yeah.
So what do you mean? This is something you've been working on in terms of like study, doing masters or PhD or?
Yes. Yeah. I did a master's in traditions of yoga and meditation at SOAS, and so a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to kind of develop my academic writing because I want to carry on that research.
Uh-huh.
So it means getting better at writing, and so editing old papers and looking at ways to develop kind of pieces that I wrote ages ago.
I see what you mean. So you're sort of working on your academic kind of language.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like reflecting on how I've written things in the past and going, oh, okay, I can see how I need to deepen that or
that must take quite a lot of dedication to do that.
Yeah, it's
to look
quite...
at over old... I find when I look at old stuff, I'm
really
like, oh
hard.
my God,
it's
what
so...
was I thinking?
Yeah, well, it's like getting into deep thought, isn't it? Because when you're just doing really mundane things, your mind isn't contemplating such sort of like deep structures of the mind and the universe. So it takes time to get in there and start kind of, analysing and wondering and contemplating. It's I think carving out space to do that's a challenge in and of itself. But.
So so you've been studying and what led you, because I'm quite interested in what motivates people towards their kind of passions or the things that they're really interested in.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, is there something that you notice in your kind of history that sent you down that path?
Yeah, God, I mean, this is, I suppose, a multi-layered thing for me. It's affected me in my childhood, as a young adult. And I suppose it, how do you say, it's like a purpose, a calling, a reason to get up in the morning. It's a thing that drives me. I guess in a broad sense, it comes from a real desire, constant desire that's there to connect with something bigger and greater. And I can't ignore it. Mm-hmm. I'm extremely cut off and depressed if I try to ignore it and get on with normal mundane life. It just feels like something is missing. Mm-hmm. Something deeply important is missing. So I've decided to embrace it.
So are you happy to sort of name some of those moments? You mentioned childhood.
Yeah. So this is I suppose growing up, I mean, I never witnessed this, but my father went through an episode which could be described as transcendence and in the same breath psychosis. So a lot of his experiences were mapped out quite articulately in Indian traditions, in the yoga tradition, but in Western psychiatry, they were seen as elements of psychosis. Mm-hmm. And that really shaped him. Later on, he began to study Theosophy and Buddhism. So as a really young girl, he would describe to me some of his ecstatic experiences, some of his lucid or transpersonal experiences. And from a really young age, I was just deeply fascinated, very deeply fascinated. And I suppose as in my early 20s, I went through a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
Having had a little bit of background, I felt okay to shed a bit of the stuff that happens in these sorts of transformations.
So you mean you had a experience yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which could, I kind of hid away from the white coats. So
Right, well done.
I went hitchhiking. I went on the road around Europe, England, India, and I just kind of separated myself from. Actually, what triggered it was, I don't know if this triggered it. I think there was a combination of things, but I just finished doing a sociology degree at Goldsmiths in my 20s, and this was, it's a really sort of left college, very socialist, into a lot of kind of breaking down structures in the system, understanding power. And so a lot of what I was studying was structures of power and conditioned responses to these structured systems in society.
Interesting.
And when you start to see the invisible walls, there's a little part of your mind where it goes, I don't need to conform to this, So part of that realization allowed a sense of freedom. And I suppose like youth does that naturally anyway.
Right.
But yeah, from that point, I distinctly remember just graduating, being like, oh my God, I'm free from institutions. And it was like a really liberating feeling. And that sense of joy and freedom was what I suppose initiated. I just ran with it.
Right.
I ran with it for years and just let that escalate.
Right. And is that what you're... so in terms of like an experience...
Yeah.
Obviously you've mentioned like the Western view is like psychosis.
Yeah.
Someone's like having...
Yeah.
A sort of breakdown of their personality. Everything's like rushing in and they don't know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say. Do you mean that you had something similar or you could feel something similar coming on, but you kind of let yourself run with that?
Yes, absolutely. Right. I think that in the back of my mind, because when I was listening to my dad talk about these experiences, I remember thinking, like, that's so wrong. They medicated you. It just felt, I just remember thinking, this is beautiful. Like the human experiencing natural ecstasy and connection to something beyond civilization, society, something greater, something incredible. And for doctors just to kind of mark that off I felt so like, how dare you? How dare you crush such a beautiful human thing, that was the indignation, I suppose, was the feeling, righteous.
But it's quite amazing that you had that indignation because that kind of served you.
It did.
Sounds like it served you well.
Very fuck you to any kind of psychotherapy that was going to diminish, belittle. And so, I mean, I was young and stupid as well, so I just kind of...
You had the sort of ignorance or naivety that you didn't have
and
to...
naivety at the time was kind of a blessing, and I managed to sort of swerve situations which could have been potentially dangerous, I suppose, but I was lucky, I guess. But yeah, I very much wanted to explore what was happening, and I felt a large part of that unraveling I let happen, and because I had a bit of context, I felt I was able to let go to it.
In terms of your dad?
My dad explained, yeah.
Right.
So that helped.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I'm really interested to hear like where that journey took you, and I just want to sort of highlight something that you said in terms of there is that big split, isn't there, between sort of Western and Eastern.
Yeah, before
view on it.
Much more so, like 20 years ago.
Right, 20 years ago,
sure, right. Yeah. I mean, now that there's a lot of bridges there. Yeah,
sure.
Especially with the work you do. Like,
well, I was going to say, I mean, I worked on a sort of psychiatric ward as part of my training.
Did you? Oh, right.
And it was like this kind of what do they call it? Forensic ward. So people who've had like psychotic breaks in prison then have to be
Right.
taken out of prison and put in these kind of wards.
Yeah, yeah.
And but we were coming in from the chaplaincy,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So that was the placement
Yeah.
with the chaplaincy.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, oh, isn't that an amazing thing
Yeah.
to be able to come in and kind of question, or not question, but also hold. Okay, yeah. So psychiatry and psychosis, but also from where we're coming from, it's more about spiritual emergency. Something is needing to emerge,
Right.
and
right.
actually, so we could sit on these wards and have that intention while talking, because that's the other thing, like, I thought I was going to go into this ward and be like, oh my God, like these people, they're going to attack me, and it's all, and I think that obviously that does happen, but actually I was just sitting down having some very normal conversations with people,
Right,
and
okay.
I wouldn't have known if I'd met them outside. I wouldn't have maybe known that they were in a spiritual emergency or they're having trouble. I mean,
Right,
obviously
okay.
people right in the epicenter of it might be quite obvious.
Right. Okay.
But,
Well, I suppose this is the thing, isn't it? At what point is it a spiritual emergency,
Yeah.
and at what point actually there's an unhealthy process, a psychological process happening which needs support and help, and potentially medicating. And I definitely wouldn't ever rule out medication, or I think it's really helpful for some people and
Absolutely.
appropriate as well in some cases. It's discerning, isn't it?
How
how do you do that?
I totally agree, and I think where psychiatry's come is like, obviously, there's a lot of people on antidepressants, and antidepressants get a really bad name, and probably because they get kind of shoved out as the answer to everything, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing any work around it or anything, it's kind of like, this is the only thing you can have.
Right. The pharmaceutical company goes,
there you go.
Here you go. Yeah.
And yet, these days, some antidepressants are pretty good. They're pretty advanced,
God,
and people, find that
yeah.
using them for a year or 6 months or a year or something is the thing that is going to help them start looking and doing the work.
Totally. I think for anyone who's ever experienced depression, sometimes that can be so heavy that you can't get up in the morning or out of bed. And if medication helps you do that, just to rewire your brain somehow towards more positive behavior patterns, then yes, that's a lifeline. That's massive. Yeah.
But I guess, again, like the 20 years on, it's kind of a bit like, well, it's all us now, isn't it? So
yeah.
we can have these thoughts and open up the conversations on it, and and look at it holistically and kind of go, do the work and take the pill or whatever.
Right.
If that's the thing that works for you.
That kind of, because at the end of the day, I suppose, I was really fortunate. I was in my 20s. I didn't have children, didn't have responsibilities. I was quite happy to be really poor. Do you know what I mean? But if you've got a family,
right,
you can't, that's really difficult. That's really, really hard. So if you're kind of going through an unraveling process, but you've got responsibilities, that's, I think, where difficulties come in.
Yeah. Because it's sort of,
you've got to hold your shit together for your kids or your husband or wife or parent or whatever, you can't
just go wandering and then remember that I have a job and a family.
Right. I suppose the famous ones did, like in our histories. It's sort of frowned upon these days, isn't it?
It's true. Yeah.
So
which,
So
where did you go then? Where you said that you went off to India and
I suppose it started in Devon. It was, to be honest, it was just meeting free minds. Other free minds really inspired so much of the process. Kind of like almost meeting certain characters who just beautiful, colourful characters who kind of stepped, flown over the cuckoo's nest, so to speak. The ones.
Yeah.
And as a result, had another vision, another insight into the world, and that generated an excitement in me. A kind of a feeling of confidence in letting go. And as a result of letting go, I think there is I suppose as well, at the same time, that would be the psychological thing that would happen. And alongside, parallel to that, a kind of death. So some of the experiences would be, so some of the more positive experiences would be a larger scope for joy, or a larger empathy, being able to feel more intricacy and emotion. And then the negative side would be being raw, utterly raw to everything and everyone's feelings, whether that was delusional or actual. It's hard to discern, or things like, I suppose, the empathy can turn into you feel someone's pain, so the suffering that you are aware of.
Yeah.
It becomes too much. Or
you mean when you haven't got any sort of internal boundaries,
right?
Where you're sort of sponge-like, so you're sort of feeling the world's pain,
overwhelming. So those sorts of things, but also quite sort of psychedelic experiences or altered states, I suppose you could say, or energetic feelings, or a lot of those things, which at the time I remember thinking, this is really interesting, and taking notes, thinking this is something that I would like to study and explore. So that's around I met you at the farm.
Yeah, where did we meet? We met at sort of
Ridge Farm.
Ridge Farm.
When was that?
1997, 98.
Was it? No, it was later than that. 2002.
Oh, so terrible with times.
It's a while ago. It's a while ago. But that
way back then.
So, I know, yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're getting on.
Yeah, the farm. That was
an amazing place. I'd settled at that point.
Right.
So,
had you? Yeah. So I'd met you when you just settled.
Landed.
Then. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose that's the thing as well. People going through this look like they might be a bit untethered.
Yeah.
So they look a bit scatty or unhinged as well, which, if you're going through that, there's an inability to connect and behave in grounded ways. Right.
So it's that sort of higher... Well, I suppose it's not higher sidetracking, is it? I mean, there is sort of higher in terms of people who don't want to ground. Yeah. They're always going to try and bypass in some way and try and feel the joy or the...
Yeah, and that can be trauma as well, like not wanting to deal with the stuff that maybe made them escape in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that's one of the potential causes as well for these transcendental experiences is trauma. That's like... Right. Like a disassociation.
Yeah.
You start to enter into another part of your consciousness because this part of your consciousness is just fucked.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the wrong word. That's how it feels.
Exactly.
It's not.
I mean,
it just is, right?
I always go along that kind of thing of, anything that you deny or suppress or that you put into, that you don't like about yourself, and you sort of put it into a kind of prison cell or something like that and lock the key and go, right, you stay there. It's kind of gone to the gym, right? It needs to go and build up until it's accepted within the whole community of you. Yeah. And so therefore locking your, I mean, I had this experience, I suppose, when I ended up in a 12-step fellowship because I kind of the drugs weren't helping with that kind of, just wanting to stay in a transcendent space.
So that was your motive. You wanted to get high and connect.
Yeah, I wanted to get high and connect.
Right.
And yet, life, knowing your postcode and paying your bills wasn't kind of happening.
Yeah.
So I sort of took another route in terms of I went, right, wild man, you have to go away now. You go away. Put him in a prison cell. But he doesn't go anywhere.
No.
He sits there going, all right, you think you can... All right, well, I'll just be here doing press-ups.
Yeah, scratching away going, this is boring, this mundane shit.
And it's been a constant lesson through life how to integrate him.
How to harness it.
Because otherwise he's just going to come and fucking take me hostage.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's the thing. I believe that there is an outward expression of this wild energy. And it's like this, in its feral form, it's, can potentially get you in loads of trouble if it's expressed, that spontaneity, which comes from joy sometimes, or that burst of energy, which is incredible. But I do believe, within the yogic systems, the Chinese Tao systems, they've found a way to harness that and in really refined ways,
Really?
So like focusing that power like a laser beam. Because at the end of the day, it is a potency.
Yeah.
It's a power. It's
like
an
eros
energy.
and energy, yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what brings things to light or inflames things, you know. And so their techniques and methods, I suppose, was sort of honing all of that into one tiny little funnel, and through that channel other parts of the brain could be accessed, you know. So those all these meditation techniques, all of that. So I think it's a great thing, that wildness, that passion, that
absolutely
lust for life. That's I guess it's how do you harness that. That's,
exactly
you don't want to crush it, you don't want to, you know,
and especially the sort of society we live in, you know, it's like it doesn't want anything. I mean, it's kind of different now, isn't it? But I mean, where there are kind of flirtations at the edge of our collective consciousness about, come on, are we a little bit wilder than this, or a bit like, but actually the sort of consensus reality is stay in your lane, go to work, do your thing, achieve,
totally.
You know.
And that gets so stagnant, doesn't it? I mean, and I've been there, and I've felt the depression of it,
right?
The heaviness of just that routine that's so, you know, dull.
Yeah.
But and there are some people who I really admire who've got the Zen thing down just great, and they can do that and feel peace.
Right.
You know, like there's sort of a
acceptance
mastery
with
there.
it. Yeah,
this like lovely balance between chaos and order.
Yeah.
You know, and they just get the Tao, or whatever you want to call it, that flow. I think that's quite, takes some maturity.
Yeah.
Spiritual maturity.
Do you think where, I wonder where, I mean, I kind of think I know what the answer is for me, but like where do you find that spiritual maturity, do you think?
So I'm probably, I don't know, I mean, like 20 years ago, I'd say my behavior, I suppose I needed to get it out of my system in a safe place, a free place, an autonomous space, you know. But for me, I guess study and practice, in especially in the Buddhist context, for me, has a map, which I have found extraordinary. I mean, I suppose Tantra, Yoga, Buddhism, there's like more than 2,000 years of exploring these consciousnesses, you know, these states.
Yeah.
They've found pitfalls, and they've figured out ways to support that pitfall, you know, psychological pitfall. And they've found ways to enhance the physical as well as the mental aspects of our being, and focus that towards human potentials that you just can't access when we're stuck in a belief system that doesn't allow for those ideas to flourish, you know. So the Indian culture just embraced that and ran with it, and designed a whole culture around it, you know, which I've found extraordinary. And
I mean, it's interesting as you describe that, because there's something for me that's quite beautiful and resonant with that, in terms of like, there's all that history and all that time, and of course, like, trust that, and yet, and this is probably just a part of me that's kind of a bit like, what, you know what I mean, but it's like intimidated by that somehow, because it's like
massive.
It suddenly means to my little ego self, like, oh, what you mean I'm going to have to go and sit on a mountain for 20 years and like not interact with anyone, and do you know what I mean? It's like all in. Oh, so you're going to be all in then, or
I know what you mean.
And I wonder, like, no, I mean, so you I mean, you obviously have a practice. Yeah.
But I know what you mean about the all in or the not, and I think it's there's so many different traditions that embrace different ways. So yes, you can clear off into the mountain and practice meditation hardcore, doing insight and all those practices, but you can also embrace, be in the world. There's practices that where you are just present with every moment in the chaos of the world, you know. So this, and I know lots of people who feel this, you know, very strongly, like very fascinated with Indian spirituality, but don't want to renounce the world. You know, and that's a big thing. Like, there's still craving for things. There's still love, passion for people, experiencing life. And that's a healthy thing, you know. And I think this is what they say in the tradition as well. There's preliminary practices. You wouldn't just go and do that. That's a natural desire that practice must emerge from a natural desire.
I see, rather than just like,
I've got to go and do
do my penance.
Yeah. Oh, there must be joy surrounding that desire to go off into the mountain and do that.
Great, yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah,
and then before that, you're just within the traditions like Buddhism and Tantra. You are training, the plasticity of the mind, all of that stuff's coming out now in psychology and neuroscience, right?
Yeah.
So in this tradition, they would say, well, you got to get the ego into a healthy place first, which means you got to love yourself. And,
you're right.
You do the loving kindness practices, the devotion practices before you start doing the hardcore meditation practices.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of preparing the ground, the bed for that immersing into the deeper parts, because there's some weird shit in there.
Right. So you're going to have to be ready.
You have to have a really loving mind.
Yeah.
To kind of meet your demons.
I suppose that's interesting. That's kind of where psychology crosses over then a little bit. Because it's
so, oh my God, it's extraordinary. The Buddhist metaphysics, Buddhist psychology is incredible, and it very much matches up to what a lot of our complicit order theory or current physics is saying about the universe, and matter, and current neuroscience is saying about the brain. It's just these guys witnessed it firsthand as a result of training the mind to go deep into the subconscious through concentration practices. So their skills were penetrating, bypassing, shutting down parts of the brain like the language centers, the emotional centers, the parts of the brain that we need to function in this day-to-day environment, shutting those or quietening them down so much so that you can access a deeper part, a kind of a very skillful means to explore, as if looking through a microscope, the finer parts of our being, the structures, the deep structures of mind and matter. Yeah. Which you can see.
Yeah.
And experience.
It sounds like you're talking about, well, for me, Vipassana.
You've done Vipassana, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I remember you said,
Yeah, because it's what I was really surprised. Well, for anyone who doesn't know what the Vipassana meditation is, it's like, it's an insight meditation, but the way that it's offered is on the 10-day silent retreats to begin with, and then I think you can go and do longer retreats or whatever. But it's quite a shock to the system if you're not someone who's even spent a day meditate. You know what I mean? It's kind of like going to silent meditation. But what I noticed from my experience there was that actually it's like they're handing you a technology. They're not handing you a religion. Because you could kind of quite easily mistake that and go, oh, right, and now I'm a Buddhist because I do this. But actually what I like about the teaching is it's like, well, no, this was used in Buddhist teaching, but it's a technical teaching to help you go beyond craving and aversion. So if you can look at your own body and what's going on in your energetic system and not have a reaction to it, then you're noticing that you're not taking those, like if you've got a painful back or whatever and you're kind of sitting there going, oh my God, like this, which definitely happened to me in Vipassana, like for 3 days.
The pain.
Yeah, the pain. And it's like
sensations.
And the teacher kept saying to me, just be with it.
Yeah.
Just be with it. And I was like, what do you fucking mean be with it? It's fucking painful. So, and it was only like the third day that I was so worn out by it that I was kind of like, I just don't care now. Just like, and just watch, and what I think she meant by, or what I took from what she meant was like, I can watch it as a sort of almost like a separate thing to me. Yeah. And therefore it doesn't have a hold on me.
Oh, so you got equanimous.
I got equanimity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was an incredible experience. But that's what I was sort of resonating from what you were saying.
Well, that's exactly that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally. I think this is the thing, like what I love about, so there's so much more around this. So this came from Burma.
Yeah.
The British went to Burma before, and it was a Buddhist country. There were monasteries everywhere. The king and the queen were funding all these monasteries, all this study, all this research, and all this practice for Dharma.
Wow.
The British came over and kind of removed the king and the queen, and then that funding stopped. So the guys in the temples, the monks, they said, right, okay, what's the most essential part of the Buddha's teaching? Vipassana. Let's just keep that. We'll condense it into Vipassana. But actually, there's a whole lot of other stuff which you need to do before you do Vipassana.
Really?
Which is jhana.
What's jhana?
So that's like getting calm.
Right. I wish they'd told me that before I went there.
It really helps. It really helps because it's conditioning. That's what you have to. You're conditioning the mind. So if you're sitting there in pain, feeling frustration, then your frustration is building and adding to the pain and frustration that's already there. So the idea is to get back into breathing and relaxing, and then when you relax, then the stuff comes out there's a psychological practice for this. It's called conditioning, I think.
Conditioning?
Yeah, recondition. Oh, I don't know.
You're probably right. I'm not a complete knowledgeable of all psychology, but
I can't remember. But it's rewiring the brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so those thought processes which you normally associate with that experience are kind of severed.
I see what you mean. So more like a sort of CBT thing.
Right.
Right. Like a kind of, oh, look, there's that thought.
Yeah. You want to sever that strength of connection between but you can't do that when the mind is like, I'm in pain.
Yeah.
Like so the jhana. But so that's a really important part of the practice to get deep. No, some people say you can get there with just Vipassana, but it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I would always say to people, it's like meditation boot camp.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I suppose something. I mean, also, I think the other thing about meditation is the sort of concept of it, isn't there? Like, what's it for, or what's it?
What is it?
Yeah. What are you
doing? Yeah. Well, there's loads of stuff you can do with it. I suppose it's just it's a mechanism.
And I've sort of found the thing that the idea around it most useful for me recently is how you come back into presence.
Yeah.
So that's almost like the muscle of compassion.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see people living their lives getting really pissed off with themselves for repeating patterns or whatever, and they come back into they sort of normally come back in with a kind of shame statement or I'm so this, I'm so that. It's
really hard to get out of those. That's the nature of the mind. This is what we do. This is the nature of reality. It just kind of like it's drawn to itself, so it just keeps reproducing patterns.
Yeah.
Like that's
like fractal pattern. Like there it is. Yeah.
So as outside, so inside. This is the nature of the mind. It takes tremendous effort to reverse that process.
Yeah.
Or desire for connectivity,
right?
Which is the compulsion, which is the, I suppose, the power behind getting yourself out of the muck.
The muck, the mess.
Yeah, and unfortunately in this country we don't have devotion as much, Yeah. Like, compared to like in India, there's a lot of devotion is a very understood concept within the culture. We used to, I suppose. I don't know.
Well, I suppose when there was maybe more connection with religion or Christianity.
Yeah, before there
must have been that kind of like, looking at a stained glass window must have been like a transpersonal experience.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So that was the idea, wasn't it? Yeah, until politics got involved, and then it just kind of ruined that.
And now you can just walk in and it's all sort of like a kind of an empty ritual or something.
Yeah, exactly. Just like disdain.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but no, it's sure.
Yeah. So okay, so. Right, so we've got the practice that gives us the spiritual maturity.
Yeah, like a preparation for the.
And so was that part of? I'm guessing that was part of your experience. That you had to dive into these practices.
Well, I think
because you not had to.
Yeah, I did have to.
Oh, you had to.
Yeah, like okay, so the Kuṇḍalinī experiences, whatever, all of that stuff. I think that's just a sort of that seemed to be a natural, spontaneous occurrence, but I didn't acquire skill from it. I was still an idiot, creating all kinds of problems in my life with unskillful behaviour. Yeah, and so it was a result of suffering. Intensely, psychological suffering, which brought me to that. And my first experience was of Vipassana in terms of, real proper sincere practice. And the coming out, I just remember just dropping to my knees and thanking the technique. Just it like being in a shipwreck and seeing land.
Right. Yeah.
And just being like, oh, there's a way out.
Oh, relief. Yeah.
There's a way out of what I do to myself. So that's what compelled me towards practice with sincerity. Like you forget.
Yeah.
Do stupid things again.
Yeah. Of
Suffer,
course.
Go back. and then after a while, hopefully that gap like gets smaller and smaller, and then practice just as one matures, I guess, that just becomes a normal part of life, and the realization of like, I'm just going to keep doing stupid things unless I get this embedded.
Well, it's interesting. Like I remember the kind of vaguely the cycle when I sat down in Vipassana. Kind of right. Oh, here we are. Right, good intention. Start. Anicca. Start again.
Yeah.
And within a few minutes, I think I'm feeling a bit hungry actually.
Yeah.
I wonder what's for lunch.
It's ridiculous.
And then it's like, oh, she looks quite sexy. Yeah, I wonder what. And then off in a whole fantasy there.
Yeah.
And then oh God, I feel really tired.
Yeah.
And then round that, and then hang on, I'll start again. Start again.
Yeah.
And it's like even in that practice, that could go round and round over however many hours sitting there on the cushion. It's like, well, this is life, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is like reflecting life of all my desires and the things that my mind takes me off on, these little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I come back into some sort of,
oh,
hello, it's you again. Oh, no, you've been causing trouble again.
How long have I been away? Half an hour? Yeah, totally. That's it, isn't it? I mean, well, within the Indian traditions, concentration is just huge. It's key in yoga and Tantra and Vajrayana. They say before you do any, start exploring altered states, or going into dream yoga, all of those extraordinarily fascinating areas, they say there's no point until you can keep your mind still.
Mm-hmm.
Like you won't get very far.
Interesting.
So it's stilling the mind. It's so doable. It's just practice, and then it does stay still.
So going to the gym of the mind kind of thing.
Exactly, yes. And it just, when it stays still, then you can start to manage and maneuver, just like so maybe within a psychedelic trip, when the whole, maybe something will emerge and you roll with it and you can't control that, you just have to roll with that. It could be positive or it could be really dark.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with stilling the mind, it's a way to, how would you say, navigate these currents
right
that just happen. You're in a stormy sea, but you become a skillful sailor, so you can sail through them. You can investigate closer without feeling overwhelmed, attacked, or scared, or do you know what I mean? There's a depth of investigation that is allowed once you're able to still the mind. And
God, that's fascinating. I mean, I think it's. I'm just really aware of like my own early psychedelic experiences as a teenager, and going, I had no idea about like my mind or who I was, or and actually they were frightening.
Oh my God!
Seriously frightening experiences, and like, oh, that's why I'm evil or something,
right?
And it's a bit like,
well, this is the danger, isn't it? You can draw conclusions which aren't necessarily so helpful.
Exactly.
Like just from having a mad vision of,
Yeah. So I think in Vipassana they call it Anapana. That. Yeah. Well, that's Is it the focusing of the mind, and you just focus on that bit under your nose? Yes. That little triangle or whatever. Yes. It's like three days of that. Yeah. To really get it, and it works. It really works. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember there were like these hours, or I think they call it strong diktan or something like that. Oh yeah. And throughout the day there'd be like these hours set where the teacher says, right, I want you to sit, but you don't even if you have an itch on your nose or a scratch or whatever, like try not to, which obviously makes the
desire.
Yeah, God,
Yes.
as I said it, I'm like, I want to make my nose and scratch my head. And it's sort of... And you... I remember... I mean, I sort of remember celebrating at the end of that. I mean, I was obviously kind of like, oh my God, I did it. But it's sort of... But do you know what I mean?
It's a great sense of achievement.
It's a great sense of like focus, and like actually you do have... You can get that focus if you want it.
You're right. Well, yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's just that determination. That's why I think, a lot of people find their way into it from suffering. They want to get out of suffering.
You're right.
There's a big motivation there.
Yeah.
It's kind of when life is sweet. It's like, whatever.
Why would I go and sit?
Leave some samsara's all right.
Is samsara like I'm asleep? I'm kind of asleep.
I mean, it's a big topic. Yeah, so samsara is the matrix.
Oh, right, the matrix. You're in the matrix.
Mind. It's the illusory material mentality that we exist in. So, yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Do you want to go
getting
there?
lost in that? Well, we could do. I mean, I suppose I'm quite interested. I'm interested in your story. So,
right, okay.
So, like, even though we're talking about these techniques and these philosophies and everything, which are absolutely fascinating, I'd quite like to know your journey with it. So,
right, okay.
So you talked about in your 20s, you had that experience of going off. You were able to go off and explore and kind of unravel and let it all happen. So, what did that? Are you saying that then led to enough suffering?
No, not particularly. I think that that was just I suppose. I think it's quite normal, and when I see people in their 20s these days, I see a kind of confidence and a maybe arrogance and a kind of loads of energy and a lust for life, and that's very normal for people in that. You kind of leave the nest,
go and explore the world
with loads of energy and loads of cockiness. And then you're bound to trip up, and that's where you learn. That's where you have your lessons. And I think this is very common for most people in their 20s, unless you play it super safe and you toe the line and do everything else. But, but if you have a kind of explorative nature or you're a bit wild, then, sure, that's bound
you're going to go and try to touch the boundaries.
You're going to find those boundaries for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, but what I found extraordinary, remember that time meeting you around the farm, the characters we met there, just meeting so many people who were having similar experiences, and a whole swathe of people who are exploring the transpersonal, but enjoying the world as well, and finding ways to, in a form of activism, change the world, and that's very much how what led me to this study is providing something grounded, or trying to provide something grounded, usable, accessible for people who are going through this experience as a framework to help them they can hang on to for dear life whilst they're going through it, and then let go of it when they don't need it anymore. So these frameworks I found really helpful for me. They allowed trust. They allowed me to let go of fear of the unknown. So and these frameworks have been built upon thousands of years of people's direct experience. So that is the mission. To integrate that, to merge that with current science, to bring these old ideas and present them in forums where people are exploring consciousness in a scientific way, within psychology, and just say, look, this is what people are experiencing. Here are some maps. Here's where they lead. And I'm not saying everyone should do this. It's just ideas and frameworks for people to use a raft, if you will, potentially. Or
the map is not the territory kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. We were just speaking briefly before we started recording about Sagioli and psychosynthesis, and it's that's exactly the thing that I love about that model, because some people will kind of hold the model and go, this is it, this is the truth.
Right.
But actually mostly psychosynthesis practitioners are kind of saying, well, this is not the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's always a dynamic thing that's unfolding.
Right.
So there are some maps
Yeah.
that we found useful.
Yeah.
And you might want to add to those maps.
Yeah.
But there's some pretty good stuff in here that's going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the motives so for me the Buddhist map is a great map.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it because
Buddhists
the motive,
tend to be quite nice people.
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately the motive is to reduce suffering.
Right.
The pain that psychological pain that humans tend to get tangled up in.
Yeah.
So that's the intention behind that map. That's the whole driving force behind everything there.
Yeah.
You know, so that for me, I trust that.
Yeah.
There's no selfish motive for power or money or let's make an amazing human, a superhuman. You know,
right.
It's just let's just deal with the suffering.
Right.
Like that for me is a great motive to. I trust that.
Yeah.
You know, as a direction.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that as well is that it's because that's the first noble truth, isn't it? Or a
Life
noble
is
truth.
Suffering. Yeah,
Life is suffering.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a bit like...
Sounds very depressing, doesn't it?
Well, that's the thing.
That's
you
the
could look at it out of context. Yeah, exactly. And people get turned off by it because of that.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a brilliant book called The Road Less Travelled. And he sort of starts his... that's the first sentence.
Yeah.
It's like, life is suffering.
Yeah.
And if we can work towards understanding that and having a relationship with that, then actually we're kind of halfway there.
Yeah.
Because it's when you think that it shouldn't be or can't, it's not going to be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's even kind of more painful somehow.
Right. Yeah. Well, like what you were saying earlier with integrating the parts of the self, like I don't think a human can exist without having some parts of their being which have had their feathers ruffled in one form or another. You know, I mean, have you ever met anyone?
No.
I don't know.
No. No, some people do a really good job at looking like that.
Right. Yeah.
But that's probably just on my side anyway.
Right.
Like projecting it onto them.
We don't know, do we?
No, we don't know.
That's
but
the thing. We can't. Oh no, you're right. I mean, we can't project. We can't project onto someone what we think. But I mean,
we can try.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you're right. I think no one gets away without anything.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Just being born.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's a full-on one.
Yeah. And I think it's we're within the actual sort of translation of suffering. What it means, it's not suffering. It's so dukkha is what the word is used in the Pali text. Is a hole, and it's a hole on the side of a cart, on the wheel, on the side of a cart. So what that in the original translation, it just means that when the hole is off center, the cart can't really run smoothly on the tracks. So it just means that a lot of humans are a bit sort of teetering rather
wobbly
than spinning on perfect axis.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the flow to happen, for synchronicity to come in, for like a life that has no craving or aversion. There's just a sense of peace and stuff flows like that kind of thing. That's what is meant. Is that a lot of people have a wonky wheel. Right,
a wonky wheel. I've got a couple of wonky wheels.
And that can be to like a greater or lesser extent.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah, so someone who's like seriously in chaos is probably finding that that's the case.
Right.
It's interesting because you were just saying that, because obviously my this is the Emerging Purpose podcast. It's like, I wonder how craving and aversion sit alongside passion and purpose.
Yeah, good question.
Because it's only just occurred to me because I suppose, again, and this is probably like the part of me that says you have to go and sit on a mountain. You must go and sit on a mountain.
Yeah.
Would be like, is not having craving or aversion fun?
Yeah.
Do you know
I
what
suppose I mean? No, I know. I mean, it's the innate human. We're born from desire, like that.
Desire, yeah.
That's I know what you mean, and I think well, the idea in the Buddhist, there's like they say there's 4 stages of awakening. There's 4 kind of, you become a stream enterer, and then you become a once returner and never returner, and then arahant in early Buddhist. So what that means is your entry into the stream of enlightenment is when you see the nature of reality, you see how everything works, you see the dissolution of the self, and you dissolve into everything, into consciousness. You become consciousness, your body dissolves, everything dissolves. So that's the first entrance into the stream when you see the nature of reality is this. This is like, you become a stream enterer. And then desire starts to lessen, but what happens is your desire is steered towards maybe a more yogic lifestyle. You desire wholesome things. You desire sattvic meaning light, lighter lifestyles. Rather than like you lose the desire for sort of like things that are really tamasic. Like I want a greasy chicken, and some porn, and some. I'm not saying like there's no right or wrong in any of that.
This is just the stages
but those things can kind of make people feel stagnant.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So So this is the thing in Eastern philosophy. There is no good and evil.
Right. So that's the kind of splitting into the dualistic.
It's causality.
Binary thing.
Yeah. These things are going to make your mind stagnate. These things are going to make your mind light and float through life. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that.
So it becomes about sort of, like you said, spiritual maturity.
Right.
Rather than like if you know that that's where that's going to lead you.
Yeah.
So if I have a craving,
causality,
to do that and drink that and do this,
you're
then I know
feel
tomorrow.
Shit the next day.
I'm gonna feel shit, and that's the choice I can make. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
And I'm knowing that more every day as I get older. Like that.
As you get older, that's definitely
you feel it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think recently there's been some studies, haven't there, about MDMA and the effects of MDMA, and how. That actually people talk about the Tuesday. It's a bit of a tangent.
No,
but like the Tuesday blues or the Wednesday blues,
right? Yeah,
is actually more caused for staying up all night.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so there might be a kind of bit of a serotonin drop, I guess, on the Tuesday or Wednesday, but actually. It's more because you went out and you were whatever and you were talking to people, and you can get a hangover just from talking to someone, right?
Well, that's how I remember, having babies, when you do that whole don't sleep for a while.
Right.
It felt like, oh my God, I feel like I've been out clubbing all night. Like, it's like, that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel sort of a bit ragged and sleep deprived.
18 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
But why did I say that to you?
That's I suppose people are using that as a kind of therapy now, aren't they, to access.
Yeah, but I guess because we were talking about the tamasic and so that the desire, desire.
Yeah.
So I suppose the spiritual maturity comes with
choices.
Good old choices.
Every moment. There's a choice.
And then that's again where it kind of crosses over psychology.
Yeah.
Because who am I? I'm a collection of desires and needs, and this part of me thinks that it's much better to do that. And part doesn't.
And sometimes there's an impulsiveness that just
you don't feel like there is a choice.
No, right? Yes, that's the thing. Yeah.
So I guess would addiction come under? How would addiction would probably come under suffering, I guess, would it, or a way to
I suppose,
or sort of a way to relieve suffering, but doesn't really get to the heart of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I suppose there's degrees of addiction.
Yeah,
and there can be really painful addiction, and there can be kind of I suppose the gravity of what that addiction is will depend on how it affects your body.
Yeah.
Because that is the solid thing that we have to live with. That's the material thing that is affected by causality, whether we like it or not. Mm-hmm. If you do certain things to your body, it will start to break down and suffer. And so certain addictions will cause harm in that sense, whereas other addictions may be more to your mind. They're not for your body or to your bank balance or to your, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's a different gravity depending on what that addiction is. There's a and it down to the most subtle, I think that, I don't know, addiction is a funny one.
Well,
isn't
it's a sort of big catch-all term actually. Now I realised when I sort of used it, I was kind of thinking, what is it?
What exactly is it?
Yeah, because
serotonin, dopamine. That
Right.
like, I need that dopamine.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's something, isn't there, about sort of Gabor Mate talks about, in that book, Hungry Ghosts, in the realm of hungry ghosts. He talks about, it's interesting when you look at addiction in terms of what is the thing, the substance that they're using, because then you can look at actually what the need is. So for instance, a coke addict is looking to feel alive and engaged, and connected. Yeah. But the only way it can come is at this moment is through snorting a line of coke. Yeah. Yeah. And kind of offering a sort of representative of what that is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know, definitely. I mean, and that maybe emerges because of an underlying psychological thing where they feel like they can't connect with people because of shyness or awkwardness or sensitivity, and there needs a substance there to kind of loosen the wheels of the social kind of cogs, if you like.
Exactly.
But yeah, but also as well, there's a whole, I think our generation when we were, in the 90s, we were, I suppose, dubbed the chemical generation.
Yeah.
In the
well, yeah, I mean the whole rave culture.
Whole rave culture, exactly.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of people were kind of self-medicating, and now it's all coming out like ADHD or like this neurodiversity, which has a label for everyone and everything. There's an understanding of that, whereas I think lots of people who were really into cocaine or speed were self-medicating ADHD potentially because they felt calm and focused. Yeah. Like I know a lot of people who used to do that and they were like, oh yeah, no, I could get on with work.
Yeah.
Like for the first time. And do you know what I mean? There was that,
exactly.
Was that whole, yeah. And, obviously maybe not in such healthy ways, but.
Well, I suppose that's it. And so coming back to that point of, like making the right choices. Yeah. And finding and sort of alleviating suffering. Then it's sort of enough experiences like that. Yeah. That, I mean, some people might not have to go to such depraved places or whatever, but it's whatever your rock bottom is, right?
Right. Yeah.
To hit that kind of point of suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I suppose it always has been times in my life where the suffering's got enough. Where it's like I'll look to, your mind can either look to the escape hatch, or right, okay, where are the maps? Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, so this is going to sound very contradictory to what I was saying with the whole Buddhist path, but in a way, there is a sort of a sense of a background, maybe programming or desire, the wrong word, I don't know, but. Want to explore all realms of the human experience, like from the darkest to the lightest. And I think I've had that. Yeah. I've wanted to see it all.
You want to see
what
it all?
Is all of it? I
get you. Yeah,
I mean, with boundaries, obviously. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I never wanted to cause harm. But in terms of like, what is that feeling in your heart? That the pain or the grief or the depression, whatever, those feelings. That's I think I've wanted to know what's the not consciously. I'm not consciously gone in there and I'm going to suffer now.
I want to know all of it. Show me everything. Yeah.
But there's
But it's I suppose it's the difference between. I'm trying to think of like, I suppose again we were talking about sort of consensus reality earlier. It's sort of a bit like. If you just build a motorway and you decide I'm on that and that's fine, I'm happy with that. Yeah. I'm quite amazed that people can do that or have those kind of lives where it's like very in a lane. Yeah. Whereas I sort of resonate more with what you're saying. It's like, it's more like a mountain expedition. Yeah. And sometimes I'm going to feel fucking lost. Yeah. And I don't know where I am on the mountain or I'm up the wrong mountain or whatever. Yeah. But I'd sort of I feel like I'd prefer to have that experience. Yeah, than something that's not. That's just monotone. Something. Do you know what I mean? I wonder. Which would probably be less dramatic.
No, sure, totally. No, completely. And it leaves you in this constant sort of quandary of like, I wonder, is there a wiring, some kind of like innate blueprint that you're born with, and you just can't change that? That's just who you are. Some people are steady and calm and balanced. Some people just want to explore.
Yeah.
And maybe is that a framework that exists that is very hard and maybe pointless to try and rewire? Exactly. But then, I suppose there's ways to harness that. And there must be a mature side of that. So for me, my vision of what a mature side of that would be to explore in an intellectual context and share that with the world, and that manner is transferred into text. The desire to explore,
nice.
And go deep and find out and find answers and connect. Do you know what I mean? Which I used to do in my
Yeah, you were out
world.
there doing it. There's a sort of a different way to come at it.
There's always with that maybe has less detriment.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it reminds me. I was talking to Philip Cargon, the Druid guy, and it was a wonderful relief to hear.
Yeah.
But he said he spent quite a lot of his life wondering why he wasn't the sort of like master of one thing.
Right.
And that if I just carried on studying this thing, I'd be the doctor of it now.
Right. Yeah.
But actually, the relief came when he realised he was a generalist, and that it was actually
it's accepting.
It was like actually no, I know enough about that now.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that thing over there that's really interesting me? Or
why
am I pulled towards that? And, and I think.
Going with that.
I mean, I have a past background in acting, and I feel like that's why I love being an actor, because it was, why is this? Who's this guy that needs to be this?
You can explore that.
So you can explore another psyche.
Yeah, and really go there.
Yeah, and really go there, and even if they are an evil character or whatever,
you're in a safe place.
You're a safe place, and it's like, well, I can see how he got to that.
Yeah, exploring motive, exploring human experience. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well, hopefully when you don't bring it home too much.
No, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Learning to.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with choices, and with shamatha meditation, you described with the breathing, concentrating breathing. I think that really helps to bring the mind back into a central point. Like the eye at the center of the storm, sort of thing. That's been a really helpful way to suddenly kind of pull myself back in and go, is this a good choice? And having that time to make that decision by being able to, as a result of stilling the mind.
Right.
Yeah. So that kind of, I will always continue with that training.
Right. The training of
stilling the mind.
Stilling the mind.
Yeah.
And is that something, so what does that look like? In terms of, I know what you're saying, you still the mind, but what's the practice?
Okay, so how you described, that's probably there's many,
right?
Depending on what you want to achieve, and also depending on who you are.
Right.
They would say.
Do you have one that you particularly like yourself?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on what mood you're in. So if you've got like a really erratic, crazy mind that's just all over the place, then you need a more dense object to focus on, like a mantra will do.
So sort of TM thing.
You put anything, like a helpful positive mantra.
Right.
Because that will occupy the very busy mind. Whereas if your mind is more subtle, bit more calm, then you can find a more subtle object to focus on. The idea is to work your way through objects of concentration until they become very, very subtle. You can't focus on the breath if the mind is really erratic. It's just impossible. So you work your way through these increasingly more subtle objects of concentration until you arrive at something really light, really subtle, which is often the breath. And then the breath slows down to a stop, and then everything stops, like completely stops. And that's when you drop into samadhi type states where you become very intimate with your object of concentration, but that intimacy means that you completely dissolve. So it's just consciousness and the object. So that's the fascinating and the interesting part. And that would be where a lot of, depending on what you wanted to do, that's where you either develop superpowers or you find enlightenment, or you know, there's all sorts of avenues you go from that point. But that's where you
start.
That's where you start.
Yeah.
So if you want to find a guru, they tell you, you know, like in the Vajrayana tradition, they tell you to clear off until you can still your mind. That would be like
go and do the work and then come back when you're ready.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's kind of that is the sort of starting point for the more, how would you say, extraordinary stuff.
Well, I mean, and it's great in terms of where we are at the moment, isn't it? Because that is more accepted,
right?
In terms of, it's great. You know, there's an understanding that meditation and stilling the mind is a good thing.
Yeah, nice. But then there's caveats to that as well, like kind of how you still your mind. Are you stilling? You know, we can sort of sit there and we can be quite slothful, but it's still. But there's a presence of laziness there. Do you know what I mean? There's these like subtle caveats to support a perfect light still mind. You know, and there's
so you could still be.
You could be meditating for years and years and not get anywhere because there's an element of intense determination.
Yeah.
You know, and you're with a furrowed brow whilst you meditate. Complete spaced out.
It's like that Ram Dass story. He talks about meeting meditators that have been meditating for 40 years. I've been meditating for 40 years.
Right, on a mission.
Yeah, on a mission.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how's that going for you?
Yeah. That's it. It's really subtle navigation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Whilst
I got into yoga nidra for a little bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I'd like to get back into it, but I think the thing that I loved about it was, first of all, like, lie down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was a sense that be as comfortable as you can lying down, and then the sort of guidance through, like the organs and the skeleton and the everything.
Yeah.
And there's something just about that kind of visualizing that, or kind of going through it bit by bit, that I just found intense relaxation from that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you come across things in that, like kind of, you know, parts of your psyche within your body?
Well, I suppose kind of. I mean, I suppose what I noticed, and I think this is part of Yoga Nidra as well, is it sort of brings in this idea of like the oppositional. So, say joy and sadness, or anxiety and calmness, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that so when I'd sort of walk into a pocket of anxiety, it would be like fully feel what that feels like in the body. The body tenses up, your heart rate's going fast or whatever, like really indulge into it, and then find the opposite.
Oh, okay.
And then go to and then notice what that does to your body. And then back into the anxiety, and then you go back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
And so then when you're out in the world, and that little bit of anxiety comes on, and you go, oh yeah, anxiety. Yes. Oh, and calm.
You can flip that.
You can flip it. Yeah, and I found that really.
That's so good.
Really useful.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. That's the thing, isn't it? We've got to tool ourselves up.
Let's get tooled up.
What do you're a psychotherapist?
I'm a psychotherapist, yeah.
Right. And so is that talking therapy?
It is, but it's interesting. Psychosynthesis was actually called biopsychosynthesis, which is kind of more like embodied psychotherapy.
Okay. Right.
So it's a transpersonal model that includes the body, mind, feelings, and spirituality.
Okay.
So yes, it mostly looks like talking, and yet there are moments where we might be talking, and then I'd say to you, oh, so when you mention that joy, where is it? Where do you feel it in your body?
Oh, okay.
Oh, let's go in. Let's see what it feels like, and it depends on the practitioner again. If if I'm not that au fait with my feeling, I can steer away from feelings and sensations. So I might not go there with the client.
Oh, so you have to be present with them enough to kind of discern what is appropriate for them in that moment.
Kind of, yeah.
Like
I mean, you need, and also where you're able to go, you know.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose in some ways, again, clients they can teach you that. They might not know they're doing that either, but if they're very emotional and you're not an emotional therapist,
yeah,
you know, part of what it is being sit in presence is like, oh, well, I get to feel these feelings with you.
Yeah. And that in and of itself is very healing.
Yeah.
Just presence.
Yeah.
Like that's I suppose you were kind of doing Vipassana on someone else.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that is it. It's, you know, they sort of talk about, like, in psychosynthesis, you talk about, like, you're holding someone's self, like higher self, for them while they don't know that it's even there.
So they feel safe to kind of go in or let that.
So on
emerge.
an energetic level, you're kind of you're sort of holding that loving kindness and potential for them.
That's lovely. That's really nice.
Yeah.
That's very Mahayana. Like
Mahayana.
Compassionate. Like,
compassionate,
you know, like doing it for the benefit of others. Like
yeah.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
No, that's wonderful.
It's harder with some people than others, but that's the practice.
That's the exciting part of it, is the learning, isn't it? How do you crack that nut?
Yeah, exactly.
So what does integrating look like then? How do you integrate parts of the psyche? Let's say someone's trapped a part of themselves away in a box for many, many years. Yeah. And it's their fun self. Or mixed in with some pretty unhelpful things as well. How do you integrate? What's the process?
I mean, there's probably quite a few ways, but I suppose the concept of it for me is about so through the relationship, how do I show that it's okay for you to be that person?
Okay.
So say, like you said, it was a fun self. So I'd bring that more into the sessions, like just having fun with you, and kind of like showing that having fun's all right, being light, or and obviously we'd also kind of get near it and work and sort of look at it from different angles, like why weren't you allowed to have fun? What's
so
the
you
rules?
go back to maybe the roots. Sort
of
thing.
I mean, I'm very much along the lines of like I don't think you can go back and heal something that's in the past, but my concept of it is, well, if it isn't healed, it's still here now. So we'll heal it here now.
Yeah.
But it's useful to know possibly why it happened, and you can blame your parents or not. Up to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter if you do or not.
Right.
But
okay. Yeah.
And there'll probably be a lot of people who really disagree with me about that. But anyway.
It's out there now.
It's out there. But it's only in this moment here that I can kind of, that it's the thing that's brought you in.
Right.
So so there's obviously something, you know, and most people really actually when they come in, what they want you to do is like just strengthen the bars on that cage. Oh. Okay. So that really won't bother me anymore, because this fun part keeps coming and taking me hostage. So can you, Mr. Therapist, please help me
just deal with that bit?
Yeah, just like strengthen the bars on that bit.
Right.
And I'm kind of going,
actually, we've got to let the beast out.
Come on, let's come out.
What do you think of sort of, you know, shamanic, like purging techniques like ayahuasca sort of things as a means to get that beast out? Like,
do you know what? How does that go? It's a great question, and I don't know fully. I'm going to say a good answer to this, but it's interesting because I haven't had the experience of ayahuasca. I've had the experience of DMT, and I'm not particularly drawn to doing ayahuasca, but I've worked with a lot of people who've had that experience.
Because you did psychedelic therapy training, didn't you?
I mean, I work as a psychedelic therapist and guide.
Right.
You know, on clinical trials.
And so, so that doesn't necessarily embrace the methodology or the kind of frameworks or metaphysics of ayahuasca type. Is it very different? Okay, I don't know much about this.
I mean, I suppose the nearest or most experience I've had is through integration circles, you know, so people come in and sharing their psychedelic experiences. And I suppose what I'm interested in terms of ayahuasca, there's a few things, you know, because I do believe that, you know, there's a sense that actually it's like called the mother, and there's an entity that is coming to tell you how to live your life, or something that might be better,
very
or whatever. Very
practice,
elemental,
isn't it? Yeah.
And I don't disregard that, but I suppose coming from a sort of more psychological point of view, I would imagine that it's either part of my highest self that's just letting me know, a truth, or I'm kind of letting some information through, and it's what I do with that information. So the integration, and that's what I'm really interested in around ayahuasca, because a lot of people, when they introduce themselves having taken ayahuasca, they tell you how many times they've done it.
Right.
And I'm always, I mean, if you did that when you were a meditator, right? I've got one friend who always sends me a text. He's like, when he's done like 7 days or
right,
or 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, well done, start again. But it's that thing. Yeah. So there's that one. It's one thing of it, like, oh right. So is it working then? Or is it just this thing that you just keep going and doing?
Yeah.
So the integration would be the sort of would be like, okay, well maybe stop doing it.
Yeah.
And see
how are you getting on with your wife.
Yeah.
And your kids.
Or there was one guy,
parents or whatever,
I remember sharing about how he was given a very, very clear message about, like, he needs to now do everything he does is about saving the planet and the environment.
Right. Okay. Well, that's quite positive.
Yeah, really positive, really positive. But then if you come back from the jungle and then, leave your wife and kids and your job to go and do that, then has it been that helpful?
Right. So yes. So, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because these psychedelic experiences are so extreme. Same with Kuṇḍalinī experiences. They are so powerful that they just dislodge, make sudden changes in someone's life. And that's the thing, isn't it? Sudden changes are just quite difficult to patch up again afterwards. It can take a long time to patch those. So
the same question to you. What about integration with Kuṇḍalinī experiences?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Some of the experiences that happen are very extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's like, I think integration happens by changing. For me personally, I can't speak on what other people may have done that worked for them, but for me, integration was about changing my worldview. One that embraced living in the world, being of the world, being a contributor to this world, as well as accessing other parts of my psyche, mind, universe, whatever, and drawing those together harmoniously. So being able to find a language was a huge part of that, to express that, but discern as well what kind of language, because it did come down to being accepted into a community. And that's a big part of what I felt was a big part of integrating an experience, because you can sound like a bit of a freak, and that you end up becoming alienated from your community.
Right.
So I'm a school teacher, I work in a mainstream school, like I don't talk about this stuff, but I have to find a skillful way to express it in a way that I can get it out there using a language that people can understand. Do you know what I mean? So it's like learning a language. Palatable
and accessible. Yeah. But it's not too shocking to the system.
Right. Yeah. And there's all sorts of positions which you could look at an experience and means of expressing that experience. It doesn't have to be so far out. So for me, integration is about being able to observe the people around you and finding a way not to like subdue your own experiences and just fit in. I don't want to do that.
No.
I want to, but at the same time, I just don't want to bulldoze into a place going, here's my idea and my opinion. And do you know what I mean? It's
so there's something about like how you take this new information about yourself or your experience and transition that into your life.
Yeah, and not to teach, but to express oneself.
Right, to express from that place.
Right. Just to be from that place.
Right, rather than
impose or
impose it. Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing, and I think I suppose humour's a great one. Being able to take the piss out of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, but maybe that's a get out clause as well.
Well,
maybe
it can be, can't it?
Yeah.
You humour as a defence.
You're right. Yeah. But then I suppose integration as well, finding your kin is really important as well. Not to create an echo chamber of yourself, but to know that there's family there that you can relate to.
Which is, oh God, that's so interesting. I mean, it's the same it seems to come back to the same place, whether it's through a psychedelic experience or I guess a Kuṇḍalinī experience or whatever. Is like actually Sangha. Yeah, you need your family. You need your.
Yeah.
I mean, that's at the heart of it all, really, isn't it? Connection.
Yeah.
And feeling part of. Something.
We all want to be part of a community, some form or another, I guess, don't we? Yeah. No, that's what I really love about the early Buddhist teachings is there is a hierarchy, but it's the language they use. It's not, they try to dismantle hierarchical structures. Right. So there's no guru. There's just friend. Everyone's just friends. Like this is in early Buddhism, Theravada. Like so, there's no sense of superior, inferior, right? In that sense, of course, there'd be like the leader of the monastery, and that kind of thing, someone who would teach the text, that sort of thing. But the language
around it,
yeah. But I mean, God, integration, it's a big one, isn't it? I think I just sort of waffled on there a little bit. Actually integrate. I think in terms of the experience of it, to be honest, there are methods of grounding, but integration, if you're on a mission to integrate, I would say the yogic lifestyle, changing your diet, who you hang out with, like toxic relationships, knowing how to recognize the red flags, and in relationships, removing yourself from situations which just cause distress, and kind of learning to love yourself enough so that you don't put yourself in those situations, torture yourself. Making those choices, that's a way of smoothly integrating the process. Nice. So that the experiences become more gentle. Especially within Kuṇḍalinī experiences, what I've noticed from interviewing people, talking to people over the years, is that when someone continues to live a lifestyle which is unhealthy, the experience gets more intense, more difficult, more magnified. As if the universe is going, come on. Yeah.
Really?
Really? How about this?
Yeah.
When you're going to learn?
Yeah.
So that, I mean, making those choices, that's certain. And then it becomes easeful, more blissful, more opening. More pleasant, more positive, I suppose, the experiences. But
so I suppose like what I'm taking from that is kind of more of like to use, well, and again comes back to language, doesn't it? It's like, I'm integrating. It's like we're always sort of integrating anyway, aren't we?
That's
what I mean?
it.
Like I'm taking my experiences and trying to make it like okay in the world rather than dramatic or it's this again or so there's a sense it's like it's a sort of doing word or a becoming word,
and letting that sadness, like like when you let go of something, when that part of you dies, and there's a bit of sadness, like you still crave it. You still crave whatever that thing is to that drama or whatever. There's a sadness, and just being okay with that death of that thing, like that's so. I mean that's definitely a huge part of just allowing parts of you to die. Like, and that transition, allowing that transition to happen rather than kind of like
holding on
to keep it alive, whatever that thing is, it's and allowing, I've felt for me, and this has been happening very recently in my life, just allowing that grieving process, whatever it is, to happen as that thing falls away, whatever it is, whether it be an actual person or an actual habit that you have or behavior. So for me, the integration thing is hugely about resisting the temptation to go back to that thing. Which is hard. Like, you know what I mean?
I know totally what you mean. I'm like, there's so many sort of habits and things that I suppose
they're no good for you.
The one around smoking always really winds me up.
Right.
Because it's like I've got this guy in me who's like a cool smoker with a coffee. Has to sit with a coffee and smoke.
Right. Does it feel good or do you get depleted?
it feels good to start with,
and then you go, oh.
and then it's like,
Right.
oh, now I'm just on the train of this.
Right,
It's
right.
like, and I've just got to try and repeat
Yeah,
this
yeah.
every time. It doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? But the idea of it is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So over
yeah,
the years,
yeah.
like, you know, haven't smoked for 16 years, and then one day it's like, oh no, that'd be a really great idea.
Right. Yeah.
And in that moment,
Yeah.
it's sort of what you're talking about. It would be, oh no, but I remember the pain of that, or
Yeah.
I know that that's not a great choice, or
Yeah.
it's an illusion of pleasure,
Yeah.
or
yeah,
something.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that dies as well, which is the joy of it dies. There's a whole bunch of stuff linked into that
Yeah.
experience, which is some really great things in there as well. Like,
Yeah,
which
Yeah.
you have to just relinquish, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
relinquish all of
that's
that.
the-
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I think, is, that's the difficulty, I suppose, is because there's a reason, there was a kick in there, which is why we go back for more.
Yeah.
Like, there's something
Yeah.
you have to, I don't know.
Yeah, I often think about that with clients in terms of like their tantric philosophy of like, or a version of tantric philosophy that I know about that is talks about your sort of demons and kind of goes, you know, sort of says, well, actually, if say you're like always in arguments with your partner, so the demon of being argumentative.
Right.
It's
yeah,
like, well, okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
where's the pleasure in that for you then?
Yeah.
And so it would be like, explore why that is so pleasurable and really wear it and feel it.
Right,
And,
yes.
and go,
yes.
like argumentative, I'm so oppositional.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love that.
Experience the textures of
It's
that feeling,
yeah.
get right in there. Yeah, well, that's so tantric, and that's quite, I suppose there's Tantra and Buddhism sort of merged, but yeah, that's the non-dual kind of side of
Right.
tantric practice, is like embrace all the feelings.
Yeah.
So much so that, I suppose, but if you can maintain that non-dual openness in your mind, then everything dissolves.
Well, this is it. And then you acknowledge it as part of who you are, but you don't have to be led by it or kind of, it's not going to come and just take you over. You can kind of go, well, I suppose that's me just wanting to disidentify from it and kind of go, oh yeah, no, I have an argumentative side, but I don't need to. But I acknowledge there is pleasure in that for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm getting some sort of pleasure out of that.
And I wonder how, like, I guess it's that that argumentative side doesn't have to manifest as argument. That can be like, again, it's like a power and a drive. Maybe, like, I guess I kind of mine didn't manifest as argumentative, but there was a sort of similar feistiness,
Right.
And so for me, martial arts was a way to like get that. I didn't want to crush that, but martial practice helped me get all that ki by doing ki, by getting that strength out and that power out.
Oh, interesting.
That was like, I didn't want to get rid of it. Like,
So
that's,
like channel it.
yeah, change it.
Yeah.
Change the manifestation of it, I suppose.
Interesting.
The
Wow,
physical
yeah.
manifestation of it, because it's a thing, and I don't think, I'm full of contradictions today. The death of things, but
Yeah.
I suppose there are ways of using the energy of something which maybe is going to unhelpful things, and pulling that in, not denying yourself that energy or who you are, and putting it into something that's maybe more helpful.
Yeah. So there's an integration, isn't it?
Yeah, a method. There's so many parts. This is why I just stick to keeping my mind still, because it will just spin
go
off
back to that.
thoughts and tangents. I'll just shut off.
I sort of feel like I could talk to you for quite a long time about this and we'd never get to the end or bottom of it.
Well,
so maybe,
there's so much, isn't there?
Yeah,
There's so much.
But I mean, I suppose to kind of come to an end or wrap it up, like, where are you? So what's interesting you right now? Like, are you? I mean, I suppose the question that I like to ask, and you might not accept the premise of the question, but it's sort of about, like, where is your purpose, or
right,
like, what's your relationship to purpose? Do you feel that you're in that, or do you just don't care about purpose?
Oh, good question. Yeah, good purpose. I suppose purpose is a very egoic drive. It's a very self-fulfilling, self-gratifying thing.
Yeah.
But it's also a thing that can give you buoyancy in life and keep you bobbing above water, so you don't drown into nihilism.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a really delicate balance with purpose of keeping yourself nicely afloat, without sinking into depression or going the other way into delusions of grandeur.
Mm-hmm.
So purpose, I suppose, is I want to cultivate, this is going to sound really cheesy, but I want to cultivate a compassionate heart.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel like...
you had to say that. By the way, this might sound cheesy.
But no, I want to dissolve those parts of myself that need recognition, gratification, because I know that they're not really helpful.
Uh-huh.
So in that sense, that's an inner purpose.
Right, yeah.
In a worldly sense, I suppose, I just want, that DSM book.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have a few of those check boxes that say transpersonal,
Yeah, it would, yeah.
transpersonal area of the DSM book.
Oh, brilliant. So is that your... I mean, not that specifically, but in a general term, that's like your...
Somehow integrate the transpersonal into the mainstream,
what a mission. What a brilliant mission.
Yeah, well, that's your mission as well, isn't it?
Well, it is,
yeah,
but I quite like... Yeah, I quite like the way you've kind of put it into those terms. It's like, let's sort of like add the spirituality onto the medical.
Yeah, but not in a religious sense.
No.
Not
like
in
we've been here all the time.
Institutionalized sense. Yeah, in a real direct human experience.
Yeah.
Sense.
So that's an another
layer to the self, isn't it?
Yeah, an integration of that, of what's going on in the world.
I have a feeling if there's life out there in the universe, that I wouldn't be surprised if that's a mission across the universe to understand the nature of the mind and reality. Yeah. Like that.
I mean, it hasn't been that long, has it, in terms of like Western psychology? Right. Really hasn't in the grand scheme of things.
No, that's it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, the Greeks, they were
on
it.
Oh yeah, the Greeks. What did the Greeks ever give us? Yeah, that's right, the Greeks. I go back as far as Freud for some reason. I'm like, that's where it all started.
Well, no, I mean, it's the science, I suppose.
It's a sort of more of science. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what next for you? What you? I quite like to do. I don't like to do a PhD. I'm very aware of everyone saying how, they managed to develop a few mental health issues after doing one. But I think I'd like to study it deeply. Yeah. And in a structured way. That's amazing. That would take some purpose
out of me.
Yeah.
Put my ego in its place.
And where can people sort of find out about what you're up to? Do you offer like classes or?
I've been recently doing some stuff at the College of Psychic Studies in London. Yeah, I mean they're very nice people, interesting. Yeah, so I want to start doing more workshops and classes and talks and things like that. I haven't really been doing too much recently over the past year, just kind of more sporadic talks and based on this theme, getting geeky into scripture and explaining the kind of mechanisms involved based on the Indian frameworks.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that's. How about you? What's your? How are you moving with it all?
Good question. Oh my God. Well, I suppose the podcast is my current purposeful thing.
Yeah.
Because I just love to learn from people.
Yeah.
And I find it just fascinating talking, finding out and listening. And but I'm also stepping out right outside of my comfort zone at the moment. I've just agreed to do a play.
Ooh,
take a role in a lead role in a play in Brighton.
Fantastic.
So I haven't acted in a play for over 8-9 years. So I'm a bit oh my God. Wow. But I just, from the time that I step up on stage and kind of, I was trying to explain this to someone in terms of I think what I find so beautiful about the acting process is that you have to keep failing over and over again until you find the truth of a moment. And so not fail, but like, you know, that's what rehearsals are for, is to get up and like step off the cliff and be a bit shit until you find a truth of a moment, and then it kind of comes, and then there's like this beautiful moment of like, oh God, I really understand this person and how he's talking to this person, and
that's a fun
and there's
journey.
an understanding. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'd cut my kind of actor self off,
right,
you know, years and years ago, because I didn't, the industry of it kind of got too heavy, and
so theatre's a different world though, isn't it? From
theatre's a different world,
TV
and also just coming back in 8-9 years older and kind of going, well, actually that was a really fun part of my life, but I turned it into my career and business.
That's so,
and that kind of made it into something that I didn't like.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
and totally. And I'm really trying to avoid doing that with this.
Right.
I don't want it to be a money thing or a.
So difficult that though, isn't it? Because you have to live.
Yeah.
But I suppose you've got you teach.
Yeah.
So you know that you've got your career in that.
Well, handed my notice in.
Oh right,
but it's I like the yoga industry, the wellness industry, just kind of, you know. Yeah. It's
finding the right.
Well, that's a whole other podcast, isn't it?
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
The work, Well, it's also this people pay. You know, if people are given anything too much for free, it's an odd one, isn't it? Because they don't value it.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of people don't value it if they've given it for free, so they want to feel the pinch of what it feels to invest in themselves.
Well, you're committed, aren't you? Once you've paid up, you're like, oh, I've paid for that. I need to go.
Anyway, that's Well, maybe we'll talk again in the future. It's been really lovely talking to you. Thanks so much.
No, thanks for having me on here. It's
pleasure.
Really, really fun chatting about all the things.
Cool. Take care of yourself.
You too.
So there you go, and thank you to Anne for that amazing conversation. I really enjoyed that, and as you can tell, we went on for over an hour and a half, so it was kind of time to stop, but there could have been plenty more to talk about. So thank you, Anne, for coming in. I really enjoyed that. And just a reminder that if you want to come and see an amazing play, even if I do say so myself, that the play Pyrenees by David Gregg will be on at the New Venture Theatre on Friday, from Friday the 21st of April till Saturday the 29th of April, and there's some Sunday matinees as well. Really look forward to you coming along and getting involved in that as an audience member. So thanks for listening, and see you next time. Hope you enjoyed the Merging Purpose podcast. Take care.